Michael Warren adjusted his tie for the third time in as many minutes. The airport terminal stretched before him, vast and impersonal, filled with the echoing announcements of delayed flights and the rolling thunder of luggage wheels on polished floors. At 57 years old, he'd spent more hours in airports than he cared to count, but today felt different. Today, he felt every single one of those years weighing on his shoulders. The divorce papers had been finalized 3 weeks ago. His corner office downtown now felt like a mausoleum. His daughter Sarah hadn't returned his calls in 6 months, and here he sat, in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, waiting for a flight that would take him to yet another hotel room in yet another city, where he knew no one and no one knew him. He loosened his tie slightly and ran his hand through his dark hair, styled back neatly as always. His watch, an expensive piece he'd bought himself last year to celebrate closing a major deal, caught the fluorescent light. He remembered how empty that celebration had felt, champagne alone in his hotel room. Michael was staring at nothing in particular, when a small voice broke through his thoughts. "Excuse me, mister?" He looked down to find a little girl standing before him. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old, with blonde hair that fell in soft waves around her cherubic face. She wore a red coat that was perhaps a size too big, and a tan knit hat with little cat ears perched on top of her head. A mint green backpack with a cat design hung from her small shoulders. Her blue eyes were wide and shimmering with unshed tears. "Are you lost too, mister?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The question struck Michael like a physical blow. Lost, yes. That was exactly what he was. Not in the literal sense, but in every way that mattered. He knelt down slowly, bringing himself to her eye level. His knees protested slightly, another reminder of age creeping up on him. "I might be," he said gently, surprised at the honesty in his own voice. "Are you lost, sweetheart?" Her lower lip quivered. "I can't find my mommy. She was right here and then she wasn't. And now I don't know where she went." A single tear rolled down her cheek. Michael's heart clenched. He thought of Sarah at this age. How she used to reach for his hand whenever they crossed a street. How she'd believed he could fix anything. Before the long hours and missed recitals, had built a wall between them that now seemed insurmountable. "It's going to be okay," he said softly, reaching into his pocket for a handkerchief, an old-fashioned habit his own father had passed down to him. He gently wiped away her tear. "What's your name?" "Emma," she said, her voice small. "That's a beautiful name." "I'm Michael." He smiled at her, the first genuine smile that had crossed his face in weeks. "Emma, your mommy is probably looking for you right now, and she's probably very worried. How about we find someone who can help us locate her?" Emma nodded, reaching out to take his hand with a trust that humbled him. Her small fingers curled around his, and something in Michael's chest, something he'd thought had gone numb years, ego stirred to life. They walked together through the terminal, Emma's little legs taking 2 steps for every one of his. Michael found himself slowing his usual brisk pace, matching his stride to hers. When was the last time he'd slowed down for anyone? "Do you travel a lot?" Emma asked, looking up at him with those impossibly blue eyes. "I do," Michael admitted. "Too much, probably." "That sounds lonely," she said with the simple wisdom only children possess. Michael felt his throat tighten. "Sometimes it is. My mommy says everyone needs somebody," Emma continued, swinging their joined hands slightly as they walked. "She says nobody should be alone." "Your mommy sounds very wise." They reached the information desk where a kind-faced woman in her 60s looked up at them. She wore a name tag that read Patricia, and her eyes immediately softened at the sight of Emma. "Oh dear," Patricia said. "Are we missing someone?" Before Michael could respond, he heard a cry from across the terminal. "Emma! Emma!" A woman in her early 30s came running toward them, her face pale with fear, her eyes red from crying. She wore jeans and a blue sweater, her brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted and terrified and relieved all at once. "Mommy!" Emma released Michael's hand and ran to her mother, who scooped her up and held her so tightly Michael could see her hands shaking. "Oh God, oh thank God," the woman kept repeating, pressing kisses to Emma's head. "I told you to stay right there while I got our boarding passes. I turned around and you were gone. I was so scared, baby, so scared." Michael hung back, feeling suddenly out of place. His role in this small drama was complete. He should return to his seat, to his phone, to his emails, to the comfortable numbness he'd wrapped around himself like armor. But Emma was pointing at him. "Mommy, that's Michael. He helped me. He wasn't lost like me, but he was lost in a different way." The woman looked at Michael, really looked at him, and he saw recognition flash in her eyes, not of his face, but of something deeper. She walked over, still holding Emma on her hip. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, and her voice cracked with emotion. "I'm Jennifer. Jennifer Foster, you—" She paused, wiping at her eyes with her free hand. "You have no idea what this means." "I'm just glad she's safe," Michael said, his own voice rougher than usual. "She's a remarkable little girl." "She is." Jennifer set Emma down but kept hold of her hand. "I'm sorry, I'm still shaking. We're traveling to see my mother. She's not doing well. Cancer, stage 4. And I was already so stressed about the trip and making sure we had everything. And then I couldn't find Emma and She stopped, seemingly embarrassed by how much she'd shared with a stranger. "You don't need to apologize," Michael said quietly. He understood perhaps more than she knew what it was like to feel like you were drowning. Emma tugged on his sleeve. "Michael, are you still lost?" He looked down at her, this small person who had appeared in his life for perhaps 10 minutes and somehow seen straight through him. He could brush off the question, make some excuse, and walk away. That's what he would have done a month ago, a year ago, maybe even his entire adult life. Instead, he knelt down again. "You know what, Emma? I think maybe I'm not as lost as I thought I was." "Because you helped me?" she asked. "Yes," he said, realizing it was true. "Because I helped you." Jennifer's eyes glistened with fresh tears. "I don't want to keep you from your flight, but would you like to sit with us for a bit? Before we board? I think I need a few minutes to calm down, and Emma seems quite taken with you." Michael checked his watch, a habitual gesture. He had 40 minutes until boarding. He could sit in the lounge, have a scotch, answer emails, the same routine he'd followed hundreds of times before. "I'd like that," he heard himself say. They found seats together near the windows where they could watch planes taking off. Emma sat between them, chattering about her grandmother's garden and her cat named Whiskers, and how she'd learned to count to 20. Jennifer and Michael talked in the way that strangers sometimes do, with an honesty that might be impossible with people who know you. She told him about her husband, a soldier who'd been killed in Afghanistan 4 years ago, about how hard it had been raising Emma alone, about how her mother had been her rock through it all, and how terrified she was of losing her. Michael found himself talking too, really talking in a way he hadn't in years, about the marriage that had crumbled, because he'd prioritized everything else over it, about the daughter who felt like a stranger now, about climbing a ladder for 30 years only to reach the top, and find the view empty and cold. "I'm sorry," he said at one point. "You don't need to hear all this." "Actually," Jennifer said softly, "I think maybe you needed to say it." Emma had dozed off against Michael's arm, her cat-eared hat slightly askew. He looked down at her peaceful face and felt something crack open inside him, something that had been frozen for far too long. "I have a daughter," he said quietly. "Sarah. She's 24 now. I missed her childhood. I was always at work, always traveling, always telling myself it was for her, for the family, so we could have nice things." He paused, the words painful. "But what she needed was me, and now she won't even take my calls." "It's never too late," Jennifer said. As long as you're both breathing, it's never too late. I don't know what to say to her. I don't know how to fix it. Maybe you start by telling her exactly what you just told me. That you know you made mistakes. That you're sorry. That you want to try. Michael looked at her. Is it really that simple? It's not simple at all, Jennifer said. It's probably the hardest thing you'll ever do. But the alternative, giving up, staying lost, is that really easier? An announcement came over the loudspeaker. Jennifer's flight to Phoenix was boarding. Emma stirred and opened her eyes. She looked up at Michael and smiled. You have to call your daughter, she said with absolute certainty. Tell her you love her. My daddy's in heaven and I can't tell him things anymore. But you can tell your daughter. So you should. Michael felt tears prick his eyes. You're right, Emma, I should. Jennifer gathered their things and Emma put on her backpack. They stood and Michael stood with them. Thank you, Jennifer said, and she reached out to give his hand a squeeze. For finding Emma, for sitting with us, for reminding me that there are still good people in the world. Thank you, Michael said. For reminding me that it's not too late to become one. Emma threw her arms around his legs in a fierce hug. Bye, Michael. I hope you find your way home. Bye, Emma. Take care of your mom, okay? He watched them walk toward their gate, Emma turning back twice to wave. He waved back both times, standing there long after they disappeared into the crowd. Then Michael pulled out his phone. His finger hovered over Sarah's name in his contacts. His heart was pounding harder than it had during any business presentation. This was scarier than any boardroom negotiation. This was real. He pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. He almost hung up. Dad? Sarah's voice. He hadn't heard it in so long. It sounded wary, uncertain. Sarah, hi, He stopped, all his rehearsed words evaporating. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from right now. Silence. I met someone today, a little girl who was lost, and she asked me if I was lost too, and I realized I have been, for a very long time. He took a breath. I've been lost, Sarah, and I made you feel lost too. I wasn't there for you. I chose work over you, over your mother, over everything that actually mattered. And I'm so sorry. More silence. He could hear her breathing. I don't expect you to forgive me, he continued, words tumbling out now. I don't even know if I deserve a chance to make things right. But I want to try. If you'll let me, I want to try. I want to know you. The real you now as you are. I want to hear about your life, your dreams, what makes you happy. I want to be your father, not just in name, but really be there for you. He heard a sound that might have been a sob. Dad. Her voice was thick with tears. I've waited so long to hear you say something like that. I know. I'm so sorry you had to wait. I'm sorry for all of it. Where are you right now? At the airport. About to fly to Seattle for a meeting. Are you going to go? Michael looked at his boarding pass. He looked at the gate, where another anonymous flight waited to take him to another anonymous city. He thought about the executive who was waiting to meet him, about the deal that hung in the balance. Then he thought about Emma's small hand in his, about her mother's quiet wisdom, about what it meant to be truly lost, and what it meant to finally find your way home. No, he said. No, I'm not. Would it be okay if I came to see you instead? Today? Now? He heard Sarah laugh through her tears. Yeah, Dad, that would be really okay. Michael was already walking toward the ticket counter. I'm going to be there as soon as I can. And Sarah, I love you. I should have said it more. I should have shown it more. But I love you. I love you too, Dad. He bought a new ticket to Boston, where Sarah lived, where his daughter was waiting. As he sat in a different terminal, waiting for a different flight, he felt lighter than he had in years. His phone buzzed. An email from his assistant asking where he was, why he'd missed the Seattle flight. His business partners would be furious. He might lose the deal. A year ago, even a month ago, that would have sent him into a panic. Now he simply replied, "Family emergency. We'll explain later," because it was an emergency in a way. The emergency of a life half-lived, of chances almost missed, of love almost lost forever. He thought about Emma, wondered if she'd made it safely to her grandmother's house. He hoped her grandmother would beat the odds, would live to see Emma grow up. He hoped Jennifer would find peace and support on her journey. He hoped they both knew what a gift they'd given him today. Sometimes angels appear in the most unexpected forms. Sometimes they're little girls with cat-eared hats and wisdom beyond their years. Sometimes they're exhausted mothers who share truth with strangers. Sometimes they're moments of grace in crowded terminals that remind us who we're meant to be. Michael had been lost, but in helping someone else find their way, he'd found his own path home. As his flight boarded, he allowed himself to smile, really smile, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and warmed his heart. He was going to see his daughter. He was going to start again. He was going to try. It wouldn't be easy. Years of distance couldn't be bridged in a day. But Emma was right. He could still tell Sarah he loved her. He could still try. And that made all the difference. The plane lifted off, carrying him not toward another faceless city and another lonely hotel room, but toward home, toward hope, toward healing, toward the daughter he'd almost lost forever but was finally ready to find. And as the ground fell away below him and the clouds embraced the plane in their soft gray arms, Michael Warren closed his eyes and whispered a prayer of gratitude for airport angels and second chances and the simple, profound truth that it's never too late to find your way back to love.